Hello, everyone. Here we are with another episode of our Conscious Health podcast. And in today's episodes, we are going to speak about the topic of not finishing the things or why can't you finish? And it's not laziness. So that's our topic of today. We are going to dive deep into the science and the spirituality of these unfinished tasks.
That's right. And we're live today. So if you have any questions, absolutely let us know. And David and I will answer them in real time for you. And it's such a beautiful topic to actually start the end. Well, it's our last episode for the year. And not only that, it's the ending of 2025. And there's a lot of completions, things that are happening spiritually and energetically. So it's the year of the snake is coming to an end, and the year of the snake is all about deep shedding. It's all about looking at the lessons we've learned this year. It's all about really gaining the knowledge and wisdom over the last cycle. It's also a 9 year, so it's also coming into the ends of nines, which is completion of yet another cycle of the 9 years before we start into a new one. And I find a lot of my clients have been tired, and it's been a little bit hard to finish off, as we say, certain things or certain tasks. There's a lot of fatigue that's coming in as well, and this is just before we go into next year, which is, if we look at Chinese astrology, is the year of the horse, which is all about new beginnings and embodying this kind of like energy in motion. And it's a 1 year, which is again new beginnings as well. From what I've been getting on a spiritual sense, David, is that December, January up to February, it's all about integration. And integration actually helps us to complete a lot of the loops in the lessons that we've learned. So when we don't embody the lessons that we learned, they will repeat. Those cycles, I find, tend to repeat. How do you see things from a scientific perspective?
Well, it is very funny how, again, the spirituality links very well or blends very well with the science, because also uh, every action, everything that we are doing or not doing, if it's an unfinished decision, if it's something that you are not saying, if it's something that you are not completing, it means that you feel this anxiety of being seen, feeling that you are being seen. And it's also based on a pathway in our brains that is the action or the inhibition. So we
Mm-hmm.
have those two choices: either we take action or we invigorate with action the things, we finish and we drive toward completing a goal, or we have this complex system that stop us for being responsible and suppressing the actions that we feel fearful about. And many times is that fear of not of having visibility and having success, sometimes even
Yeah.
about something that you are not ready, or you feel that you are not ready. And that's the level of unworthiness or self-sabotage that you start activating in your own mind, no?
Absolutely. I agree with you. And it's almost kind of, yeah, there, like you said, that fear of completion is real, because it's almost kind of like, who are you when you're not that thing anymore, right?
Mm.
Like, and a lot of the times, finishing creates visibility, responsibility, and momentum as well. And it also makes something tangible, which sometimes can trigger some sort of kind of like identity expression. And like you said, the nervous system, it sometimes hits a pause as well. And it can be a little bit difficult in the sense that, it's I see completion as perfection,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because once we hit perfection, like if you were to look at it from a kind of like an infinity kind of symbol, that point in the middle as one cycle moves into the other is perfection. Because perfection for me is just like it's the ending of a cycle before we start a new one. And sometimes I think we chase that. It can be more perfect and more perfect and more perfect, which is kind of like a resistance to kind of like stepping into that next cycle as well, right? And we start to get kind of like, because a lot of the times we move into an unknown. So what is the next cycle? And we look into that expansion, and we get so comfortable to where we are, which is why sometimes we create those loops, because that creates some sort of safety. It's a trauma response in my world that we know this, we know how this works. We know that, always waiting for that next shoe to drop, always in survival. And not only that, from a spiritual perspective, we tend to look for opportunities to reinforce that thought or that belief system. So we can go, see, I told you it was like this, right? So we find these opportunities to reinforce that. So moving away from that, which is I feel is very, very old, kind of like we're moving into a space where we're starting to consciously create our future. And I like that in that sense, because it brings in that level of responsibility, and I suppose a control in a way, when we start becoming responsible for what we're creating rather than life happening to us. We start looking at, okay, this is what I want to put into place, and allowing that energy to flow in and bring in those opportunities. But then it is up to us for sure to grab those opportunities and do something with them.
Yeah, it is. It is a very complex symptom
Mm-hmm.
that, in terms of the psychology and how your brain works, how it links these responses, is is the birth. It is known in psychology as the birth of the goal conflict. That's a pretty curious name, because it is the completion conflict that you have, and what you were saying of this level of finishing one goal, and then knowing that once you finish that, what happens? You don't know what happens, and you
Mm-hmm.
are many times pressured to have a second goal or a second completion, and you don't want that pressure. So you have this uncertainty of finishing something, that whatever you are finishing is successful. And then what happens? Are you ready for the next steps? Are you ready for this direction that you are taking by completing the things, or you are not? And that's when it enters this conflict of self-confidence in your own self and taking responsibility of your own life. And many people stay in that procrastination because it's easier from there to just play sometimes the victim, and saying that things are not aligning to release something or to complete something, and they start looking for people to blame
Mm-hmm.
out these kind of situations, and they stay in a comfort zone, so because they feel safety, and that's another
Mm-hmm.
fear that we have when we move
Yeah.
on this.
So I tend to sometimes procrastinate when I don't have clarity on how to complete something. And I don't have that idea, or it's not in alignment, right? And then sometimes we procrastinate, yes, because you know it's outside of our comfort zone. What I tend to do when I see those kind of things like that is, say, for example, public speaking has been out of my comfort zone, which you wouldn't think so,
Mhm.
being on YouTube and doing so many videos.
Yeah.
But it's out of my comfort zone. So what I've done is, so that I don't procrastinate, is I've said yes to a lot of speaking engagements,
Mm.
so that I know it has to be done, and it has to be done at that time, right? So it's almost kind of like that is one way. But the other thing is, sometimes we outgrow certain projects. Sometimes we our direction changes. Sometimes the energy aligns, and a lot of the times is really about, doing those things that we need to do 100% and looking at your to-do list and saying, okay, because I think that having that to-do list is like having open tabs in the back of your mind, right? Where you're just kind of like, and that for me is stressful as well, because it's just like there's so much that's there. It's looking at, okay, what is still in alignment and what is not. And then, or sometimes just going through it and saying, okay, today's the day that I tackle all of these, especially if they are in alignment. So it's feeling the fear and doing it anyway is a good way of doing it. But it's there's some discernment that I think we need to have a look at. Like, I mean, like I have been avoiding trying to switch over the phone, companies, and that's because I know I'm going to spend 4 hours on the phone, but it's going to be stuck in a tab in the back of my head, and it's going to cause some stress until it's done. Right. And there's some sort of a dopamine kind of like hit when we start, for me at least, checking things off. Right. I've done this, like I've done productive, which I think is why I think the first thing I do when I get up in the morning is I make my bed, because it's like, tick, it's done.
Mm.
I've already accomplished one thing today, for example.
And those are beautiful messages so that we can start leaving that conflict of not finishing things and starting new ones. I mean, the one that you mentioned about challenging yourself and accepting these engagements of speaking. So we do that, and we can start slowly, and we can start with people that we feel comfortable so that we can start getting experience, let's say, and doing the things. And I also think that the other side of the coin, let's say, it's that in my case is I have a lot of ideas sometimes and a lot of projects. So I start one and I don't finish the other. So and then I have another idea and I have another project, and then I start that one, and then I have two unfinished projects, and then I keep building up the things
Yeah.
until it's too much. So sometimes that happens too. Whenever you say yes to many things, that means that some of those things are not going to be completed because you can't have this bandwidth and you need to prioritize things. That's why also I usually start also by doing my bed, and as you say, checking off. The next check is exercise. I'm taking care of my body. That's another check. So
Yeah.
all of those things allow you to start having things in order. And for me, what I'm doing now is just prioritizing more, with more level of responsibility to finish the things that I need to finish now, and then
Mm-hmm.
accept or think even about next ideas, because my mind goes quickly to the new projects, new ideas, and that's something that I have to sometimes repress. No.
Absolutely, and I'm the same way. I think in that sense, because you see the potentiality of all these amazing projects, right? So that is one thing on my bucket list for next year, is to really try and to narrow things down and make sure that it's in alignment. I've actually shifted my business because like I've done a lot of kind of like metaphysical stuff and intuition kind of like activations and stuff, and now I'm like starting to focus on kind of like Akashic records, ancestral healing, and those are the two lines. And but then sometimes there's these awesome projects that come up and you're just like, oh my goodness, and I feel that I can do them all, right? So I get
Yeah.
really excited because again, we see the potentiality in everything. But it's really actually running through the process of, is it in alignment with my purpose, my passion? Does it deplete me? Does it exhaust me? And can I do that? Is it in alignment with, how does it serve? Because here's the thing, I started learning that when we say yes to one thing, we're saying no to something else. So what are we saying no to? Right.
Mhm.
And then there's also the organic opportunities. And I was having this discussion this morning. So there's these organic opportunities that show up. And are they a distraction, or are they a pivot, or are they going to bring you something? And especially in when we're looking at that space of connecting into the heart, it's going kind of like, okay, do I need to connect to this? Does it feel in alignment? For some reason, I need to be here, but I don't know why. And usually that allows a lot of things to unfold from there, which is brilliant. But it's how do you discern from what is in alignment and what is not, what is opportunity and what isn't? Because I get excited about it all, right?
Yeah, that's the problem, the level of excitement that we can bring to those new projects. And but one key aspect that was also mentioned is clarity. No, I think that clarity and knowing which projects are going to, let's say, function as a
Mm-hmm.
springboard, those are the ones that should be on the list, on the priority
Yeah.
list. And then, as you mentioned, if any other new one arrives, it's easier to assess that new one according to the level of priorities that you already have. No?
Mm-hmm.
When we have these goal conflicts, they are associated with anxiety, and then anxiety is the mediator and the leading directly to the somatic symptoms. So that's why people experience and at this point in time, finishing a year and thinking that some things were not done. This is where
Mm-hmm.
most people experience the symptoms of this anxiety, having headaches or stomach pain or back pain, fatigue, or trouble to sleep.
Yeah. And I think that's also important because our body's starting to tell us, like, what is it? What is going on, right? As well. So I think it's important to listen to our bodies. Like you say, like the first thing that you do is kind of like, okay, I have this physical form, so I'm doing exercise. First thing in the morning, making sure that that is there, because I think moving that energy through your body is important because that also creates a de-stress, and it allows you to check into your nervous system, right? To make sure that there's calm, so that we have clarity as to what needs to be done next, right? I used to do a meditation, and I still do a meditation. Somehow it just sits in my subconscious before I wake up, and I ask, what is the one thing that I need to do today? Right? What is and sometimes, because I think we're so overwhelmed at this time of the year, especially if you've got, there's a lot going on, Christmas time, holiday time, companies are closing down, for the festive season. And then there's a lot that's happening, even between being bombarded with messages on kind of like, our social media, and there's just so much that's happening, and so much happening in the world as well, as we come into this time of completion. Because this, like, 2025 has definitely, for me, kind of like, I joke around, I say it's kicked my butt. I've done a lot of internal shadow work this year, because there is a lot of kind of like those limitations that have come up. And it's almost kind of like I can feel this future potential version of me pulling me into that, saying, okay, no more playing small. You've grown out of that skin, kind of like shed it, right? And we're like, no, it makes me feel comfortable, like a nice little warm blanket. And it really is that letting that go. And we're starting to see that in the world as well, from that place of, people are pushing back and going, okay, medical system's not working for us, government systems aren't working for us, educational systems, healthcare systems is like, it's all of that is coming up, all the shadow of that is coming up, to be looked at, to be resolved, to be dealt with, right? And I think a lot of people have been ignoring it and going with it. And now it's getting to the stage where it's like, you can't ignore it anymore. Like, how are you going to show up? What are you going to do? What are you going to change within yourselves, right? To move forward in a way that is in alignment and that is more authentic with who you are, which I think
Yeah.
is very important.
And that is what also makes the conflict bigger, because we have these systems in place. That one is the emotion, the limbic system, that says we want relief we don't want negative feelings, and we
Mm-hmm.
associate the negative feelings with change. We associate negative
Mm.
feelings with a new task, with something that seems at the beginning to be, let's say, monumental, but it
Mm.
is not. It is something that you need to do, and your body also tells you to do. And then you have the brain that enters into the equation and the prefrontal cortex, and it says, try to focus on long-term goals, which need this responsibility of
Mm-hmm.
being, how are you going to play in this new landscape that is forming with the world that you are mentioning, that things are changing. What are you going to do? Because no one is going to save you, and you need to
No.
take responsibility for those things. So the limbic system is telling you to be comfortable, have safety, and your
Mm-hmm.
prefrontal cortex is giving you signals of what are you going to do, how are you going to survive, because things are changing. So are you
Yeah.
many people feel also this uncertainty that their jobs are not forever now. They are really unreliable, and they don't know how much time do they have still in their jobs. So in many countries nowadays they don't have pensions. So
Mm-hmm.
what are they going to do for those ages of 60, 70? So that's the anxiety that is being created by the external signals, no?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And yeah, how do we approach that from a place where you're absolutely conscious about it? And it's also, I feel that these are also opportunities for us that are coming up as well to drive our own, be the master of our own ship, right, as well, right? Because a lot of the times I think we give our power away, as we say, or we like you say, waiting for other people to rescue us. How do we move forward from that? Because gone are the days where you were in a company for 20 years
Mm-hmm.
or in a home for 20 years. It's everything. Like you were talking about change is just the only constant thing that's happening. And if we look at things from a spiritual perspective as well, or from a quantum perspective, the soul comes to learn a few themes in this lifetime, and a lot of the times we tend to ignore those themes that show up. So we procrastinate in not dealing with them, and they'll just show up again, which is a beautiful thing because the opportunity is there to learn. And if we don't want to learn it one way, it will show up in another way. Which is beautiful. So if you tend to see that you're dealing with one theme at work, for example, you will find that same work person at home or in your relationships or, in the other areas of your life as well, whether it be a parent or whoever it is. And that's to do that internal work that is available to us as well.
And I think we are now arriving, or we can get a beautiful segue into this completion fear that we have, and the year that is coming, 2026,
Mm-hmm.
that means initiations and means, let's say, a reset. We can see it as a reset button that we are being pushed. And the word that you mentioned, to integrate things,
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing that we need to do to move in a cycle that is going to complete things, to connect the mind, to connect the body, to connect the spirit, and to start designing rituals or techniques and exercise to complete the things that you need, and start small, because people also get triggered by these new year goals and new year resolutions, and they
Mm-hmm.
just accumulate too much things. So let's do a different kind of year initiation, and let's just choose three things that you want to accomplish in the next year. three big things that you want to accomplish and set up smart goals, not very, let's say, ambitious, but real things that you
Mm-hmm.
know that you are going to start doing, small steps that you are going to do. Like, for example, if you want to lose weight, let's say that you are going to start walking 10 minutes every third day, no? Or three times per week, 10 minutes you are going to start walking. And then you increase, probably in 1 week or in 2 weeks, you increase 5 minutes and you have 15
Mm-hmm.
minutes walking 3 days. And in that way, you are going to start having this completion cycle of
Yeah.
3 days. I did it 10 minutes. Even if it
Yeah.
sounds small for many people, it let's not worry about what other people think because they will always say
Mm-hmm.
something or think something. So let's just focus on what we can do right now. And that is enough. That is enough. And then we can increment the things until you get to a level of confidence that you feel that you can go for more, no?
Yeah, I agree. And not only that, like I find that whenever I make a resolution, it's like I say resolutions argue with willpower. It's like I'm like automatically I'm like don't if somebody says you can't, usually my response is watch me or uh, challenge accepted. So when I'm like I will not do this anymore, it's we have to look at really kind of like you say these micro habits, in a sense, and it's just about shifting some of these. Even if saying I'm just going to take 1 minute and just breathe, and that Tim Wagner gave us, that was a great episode where he taught us to breathe, and that starts to bring in those bring
Tools.
calm to our nervous system, and those tools tend to help us. So it's really about we can also I have my cousin picks a word for the year. She's like whether it's kind of like clarity or sovereignty or flow or whatever it is. I think that's important. So what are we needing more? So a big thing for me, a big aha for me was really kind of like this year was I didn't quite realize how I operated from survival mode, right? So,
Mm.
and I think that's probably also why we try and take on as much as we can, because it's like I need to like it's a survival thing, right? So I'm looking at okay, so what does it look like thriving? So it's looking at so it energetically kind of like I'm sitting into that. What does that look like? What does that feel like in my body? What does it sound like? As I move forward as
Mm.
well. And so that is one thing I'm looking at. And then the other thing is closing energetic tabs, right? So like I'm unsubscribing. I'm so subscribed to so many different things. I'm just quietening the noise. I'm unsubscribing digitally from like my emails. I'm really looking at okay, what groups do I belong to that I really really need to focus on kind of and unfinished conversations. Half alive projects, do I complete it and close the loop and say it's not in alignment, or do I complete them? But it's that getting ahead of it and making that decision. Do I let it go? Do I complete it? Do I consciously release it because perhaps that's all where that project needed to get to in order to align you into something else, or look at okay, what is a distraction and what is not, and that's something I need to get into as well. And as I look at my year next year and think, okay, what do I want to do, right?
Yeah. Looking at the big picture and deciding, as you mentioned, what are the things that are going to move the needle, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
into what you want. And one of the ideas that also I can give is that we can reframe the negative and the absolute thoughts that you can have that will say, probably this critic voice will say, I'll never finish
Mm-hmm.
this. You can reframe it and you can say, I can work on this thing for 20 minutes or 30 minutes and let's
Mm-hmm.
see how much do I accomplish in this time.
Yeah.
But just single task. Also, this multitasking idea is not working now for
Yeah.
many of us. And the more we learn how to work with one task and then
Yeah.
give all the energy to one task, that's when we are going to see that we are moving forward. What I did and what I can also suggest for people is that I have days where I just dedicate myself to podcast, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and then I edit podcast and I upload the thing, all of the
Mm-hmm.
podcast that I have, and I dedicate one day just to that. Then the next day it's dedicated to editing my book. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I do, and I don't do anything else but editing. And I have breaks also, because our brain needs
Yeah.
those breaks. Also, we can't be focused more than 90 minutes. Every 90 minutes, you need a break. And
Yeah.
that's too much sometimes, even 90 minutes. So you can start with this 20 or 30 minutes. That's another technique that is called the Pomodoro technique.
Yeah.
It sounds like the pasta, but it's not. It's just a task that says that you need to work 25 minutes and then break 5 minutes.
Mm. Yeah.
Break 5 minutes and walk, breathe, or close your eyes a little bit, and then you go back and then another 25 minutes. And in that way,
Yeah.
you will see that those manage systems are going to help you to complete more rather than being inside of the task, forcing your brain, and then getting into this multimodal mode or multitasking mode where you have, I don't know, a lot of things being done at the same time, and you just get overwhelmed. No?
Absolutely. No, I agree with you. Yeah. So also the aspect of clearing your physical space. I mentioned clearing digitally. So you're saying that, like, I used to, and now I've gotten into a bad habit. I used to just have I used to just have one thing in front of me when I was working, and now I have many. And you're right. It's we no longer have only one priority. It starts to change to priorities, right? Because and that's the thing with technology helping, with so much help out there. Instead of doing less, we're actually doing more than
Yeah.
what we did before. And I remember I used to work for a company that was one of the first to actually do pure broadband services, and they were one of the first that did voice over IP. And I was so excited. I was like, and I remember going to a dinner once, and I sat beside one of the priests, and that was there, and I said, "This is so exciting! You know, you can receive your email, you know, right to your phone, and you know, you can always on 24/7." And I'm like going, "Oh my god, now we're always on
Yeah.
24/7." Right? And I was just like, because we thought of the ease of it, but there's so much disconnect. I think it's important to look at, okay, this year, you know, what is the one word that I'm living from? You know, who am I becoming next year? Or, you know, am I just continuing to, you know, the same cycles, right? Because we're starting a new cycle. Like, what are we taking with us, and what are we leaving behind? And it's
Yeah.
almost like making a list of okay, well, what are my non-negotiables for next year, right?
There
And then doing those first.
first things. Yes, there is still time to do that list of the things that you don't
Yeah.
want to bring for the new cycle. No?
Yeah, and it doesn't have to start with a new year,
Yeah.
right? It could be a new week, a new month, a new day. We're always kind of like, you know, it's creating those micro habits until we've got that, because it's like you say, at the beginning of the year, we make a whole bunch of promises to ourselves and it becomes overwhelming. So it's better to do kind of like one of those and then allow that and then the next one. But I also like looking at what is the core of this, right? Um, why am I doing this? What are the stories? Get into that understanding. Okay, why do I keep finding myself in the same situation? Why am I avoiding, doing exercise? Why am I avoiding doing, I don't know, connecting with my accountant? It's like stuff that it's like, where is that? Where is that hindrance? And actually looking at it with compassion and going, okay, today we're going to do that. Whatever it is, we're going to have a look at that, because those are things that have to happen. Those are things that are part of life that need to happen. And I think also discerning from your to-do list, as in what is a must-have and what is a nice-to-have, right?
Mm.
So you're looking at, okay, what is important, and then just starting with one at a time, and once that is complete, doing the next one. I think that's helped me a lot, especially when I've been super super stressed. It's just like, what is the one thing I need to do today, right?
Yes. And I think that there are three big pillars into this finishing act that we can do.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is a sense of purpose. So everything that we are doing needs this level of meaningfulness, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
and how it contributes to a larger perspective in our days. Many people are
Mm-hmm.
connected or, let's say, mm, unmotivated because they don't feel that sense of purpose. They don't feel that the work that they are doing is meaningful. So they have to find something that they assign meaning to, and that is the inner alignment that we can call it this second pillar. So we
Mm-hmm.
reduce this internal conflict between what we should do and who we are, and those are the things that people can push you to do, but you don't want
Mm-hmm.
to do them because it's not who you are. So it's
Yeah.
asking the question, I mean, do I need to really do this, or is this just external pressure? So
Mm-hmm.
asking that question can give you a lot of clarity into what you really want to do in your life. And the next
Yeah.
is connection. No, we feel more connection when we share a mission, when we have this, as you were mentioning, cleaning out your external community, let's say, to people
Mm-hmm.
that you really connect and you have a shared mission and that they are going to lead you into the same path, no?
Yeah, in saying that, that was also another. I told you 2025 was a big year for me. That was the other thing, is like I started looking at, what do I feel obligated to do? Am I doing something because I want to do it, or because I'm obligated to do it? Right.
Mm.
Um, and and that was very much a big turning point for me, in that sense that I tried to become really honest about saying, okay, no, this is not an alignment for me at all, because sometimes people show up because we're feeling obligated, they feeling obligated, and nobody actually wants to be there anymore, right? So it's almost kind of like it's certain things that must happen due to society or whatever, or our families and things like that. But it's important that to know that, okay, I've started saying, I'm not saying yes to anything that I feel obligated to do it. I really really want to be there if I'm in alignment, if it's in alignment with me, with my passion, with my purpose, what I'm trying to do. Does it expand me? Does it excite me? And does it support humanity as well?
And that is something that also goes into the level of your the people that you surround with, no, leaving those
Mm-hmm.
people and those environments where you don't feel the right energy and the energy that you need in order to feel that you are being accepted, that you belong, that shares your mission. Because when you go into these obligations of
Mm-hmm.
needing to be there, but you don't want to be in this, let's say, in one activity or in one um, meeting or gathering or whatever it is, then
Mm-hmm.
you you are just going against your own will, going against your own
Mm.
nature, and that's the level of discomfort that you create in yourself, and then you feel bad. You waste
Mm.
time. You feel bad because you went to something that you didn't want to, and then
Yeah.
you activate this inner critic and this voice, and this raises the level of saying some things that are not even true, no?
Yeah, absolutely. I think even if we do like that, inner critic is so important. I think if for 2026, even just if there was one thing that we could do is notice the quality of our thoughts towards ourselves. And I always say that if you wouldn't speak to a child or your best friend in the matter that that inner critic is speaking to you, it has no business being there. So and we're so used to. I think sometimes we're our harshest critics, uh, in a lot of like the things that we do. So it's even if we just offer ourselves a little bit more kindness in that sense of going, okay, yes, I made a mistake. Or yes, there's a conditioning. I wasn't even aware that I was doing this. Now that it's brought into my awareness, it's like, okay, how do I prevent this from happening in the future? Because we can't go into the past and change it. Yes, we can go, we can ask, sorry, we can, but really it has to change in our thoughts and our behaviors moving forward. Otherwise, we're going to keep doing the same patterns. So, really looking at, okay, why did I do that? How have I been doing that? But the beautiful thing is once these patterns that we go through arise, it means that they're ready to be released. They don't serve us anymore. And up until then, somehow it has served us, whether it was through survival, whether it was giving us a different skill, whatever it might be, whatever that pattern is or that limitation that we see, it served us in one way or another. So I think that's where it allows us to give us a little bit of a kindness in a sense of it's conditioning, whether it be from family, whether it be from society, whether it be from friendships, whatever it might be, it's a conditioning that we're ready to release, right? And that forgiveness and gratitude for the lessons that have come in and for the wisdom that has created within us. But it's like drawing that line and saying, okay, now my behaviors, my thoughts, my emotions change how I respond to the same situation changes. And sometimes that situation will arise again just to make sure you respond to it in a different way. And sometimes people go, see, it's not working, it's like energy works in a loop. So whatever we are putting out, we're getting back. So even if our frequency has shifted, there's still a little bit of the old frequency that comes back, and how we respond to it shows us if we've actually made that internal change, right?
Mhm.
It shows us, are we a different person, or are we the same person creating the same cycles, responding in the same way? And that's, I think, a beautiful aspect of life, because it's almost kind of like, well, if you're not ready to change, we'll wait. It will come up in a different way.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it's important. The changing of behavior is important moving forward. Um, how we respond to things is important. But if we can just change the way in how we think about ourselves, or that internal dialogue, um, yeah, I think that's important.
You remind me of a book that I was listening today,
Oh,
and I was listening about the name of the book is Nothing Changes Until You Do. Uh,
mm,
and the author is Mike Robbins, and
okay,
he was speaking about one of his dialogues, this inner critic and this inner dialogue, but he was having this dialogue with his partner, and
okay,
he was criticizing himself and saying things that he couldn't complete something, or he didn't get to the level that he wanted, and his partner told him, "You know what? You can't speak about my boyfriend like that."
mm,
And he said, "What are you saying? I am." your boyfriend. Yes, but you are not now. You are speaking as
Yeah.
you are not the same person. So I'm defending my boyfriend from this person that is getting into your mind and saying those things. And that is what happens when we leave these people, these voices that are from our ancestral lineage, and many times they are from our parents or from some friends, let's say friends, because they are not friends,
Yeah.
of course, or
Yeah.
teachers or whatever it is. Those words come in the worst way, and those are the words
Hmm.
that create this inner critic. No?
Yeah, and I've done that to one of my daughters before as well. Like, so my daughter went through a stage where she had these really thick glasses and she had no teeth because she had like tongue threading and all sorts of stuff. And it was such a dorky age, but she was so cute, right? And then I think a year ago, like last year, she said, "Hey, can you send me some of those pictures? I want to show them to my friends." And I said, "No, because you're going to be cruel to that little, 5, 6 year old." I was like, "I'm not doing it. I'm not sending it to you."
Yeah.
I was like, no way am I doing that.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, no, I love that part of like that. It was just part of her growing up. It was just like, and she was just so excited all the time. And she was so happy. But I was like, no, that's not a good thing.
Yes, we grow up with many of those things, and the only way to stop them is just to recognize that they are not our own voice. They are just
Mm.
external things that people think, or these appearances that we can have. And more now than ever, I think they are influenced by this extremely powerful culture of social media that makes you
Mm.
just depict uh, your good side, let's say,
Yeah.
someone that is not, and just trying to appear as someone that is influencer, let's say,
Hmm.
but you are not that person. You are just a fake mask that you are using. No?
Yeah. And it's like, I call that marketing. It's
Yeah,
just like this is what it looks like. What's happening behind is something different, and I think that that's what I enjoy about a lot of like my podcast with you, my podcast with John Binney as well. Is a lot of times it's not edited. Well, it's not edited at all, and it's just that space of getting to love ourselves authentically, even through the mistakes, and yes, we're always learning to speak better and to share knowledge and wisdom, but it's loving all aspects of who we are, and this is such a beautiful journey into getting to know who we are, but we're needing to love ourselves as well.
yeah,
um
and being
yeah.
honest, not having this script. No, that sometimes there are many podcasts now that they just feel like they are
Mhm.
not saying anything. I mean,
Yeah.
you can listen to 5, 10 minutes, and there is nothing there because it is just scripted, and as if they were using something that is not available for many people and not relatable for many people. No, so
Absolutely.
I think that we can wrap up this topic into, let's say, in our bodies is like a symphony of completing things, and it starts with our brain. And the number one thing that we should start doing is that our struggle with finishing, sorry, it's
Hmm.
rooted in a biological mechanism that is primitive, and that is pause. We can pause
Hmm.
and don't allow
Yep.
this primitive brain to start, and then cancel the things that we don't want in our lives, like this inner critic, like these voices that you are not
Hmm.
going to finish something. So you can cancel the things by pausing a little bit and not letting this primitive brain to run its way. The number two step that you can use is when you feel that your system is overwhelmed by this goal conflict, and you have this comfort and the brain that is planning things, when you have this psychological anxiety and real physical symptoms, then start by doing this shift of the things that you want in your life, and
Mm-hmm.
allowing yourself to breathe, to have these reset, minimal reset moments that you can have. And you can overcome this by using these cognitive tools or learning tools to cultivate mindfulness and to focus on the present thing and to calm the internal battle of what is going to happen or the uncertainty. No?
Absolutely. And we've had two guests here that have been with us, Lindsay and Rad Dad. And Rad Dad says, great message. I was inspired to start a weight loss journey today without guilt tripping myself. And I think that is absolutely important, to absolutely honor your body, your mind, your soul, and yeah, no guilt tripping. Yeah, that's. You need more love, not less. So guilt tripping doesn't help anyone, which is beautiful. Thanks for sharing that with us as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, for looking at kind of like what patterns there are that are there is, yeah, just get really curious about, how is this, how have how has these things helped you, and what's not serving you anymore, and be brave enough to let go. I'm constantly a work in progress, but getting curious and doing it with kindness and compassion, and every day is a new day, every breath's a new beginning, is my suggestions. And yeah,
And I
live the
have a
life you want to live. Yeah,
I have a quote that is going to finish things, I think, in a good note. And
do
it
it.
says, the secret of getting ahead is getting started. The secret of
Mm,
getting started is breaking your complex, overwhelming task into small, manageable
mhm,
tasks and
mhm.
starting on the first one. And that was said by Mark Twain.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Have an
Oh,
incredible rest of your year, everybody. If you want to talk about topics next year, today we're a little bit early. We usually meet on a Wednesday. We're happy to go live and have conversations with all of you. Yeah, looking forward to seeing you in 2026 with new beginnings. Have an incredible Christmas, and I'm saying Christmas, and have an amazing start to 2026. So wish you all well, and thank you for being part of our journey. It's really,
yeah.
really appreciated. And thank you for all your support. And thank you, David, for hosting this with me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And thank you, everyone. Also, have beautiful holidays, beautiful Christmas, and this end of the year. And just be patient with yourself. Start small, start with these small tasks, and be in alignment with what you want. That's all I can say. And thank you for listening to our podcast. And see you next year with more
Okay.
topics about this spirituality and science blended.
Goodbye, everybody.